Okay, so this is technically our last week of meeting. That makes me sad because you guys have done a great class. Tuesdays have been a lot of fun all semester. But some quick announcements. I thought to myself earlier what to do about those 10%. That's for grammar quizzes. And rather than giving you more, what I decided to do was allow you guys to do a retake of the 3 that I do have, because I think those are 3 very important lessons. So in case you guys didn't get a good grade on one of those 3, it will allow you to retake it for a better grade. Okay, so if you want me to, if you didn't do well on one of those and you want me to review that with you, I'll be more than happy to. But rather than giving you more, I decided I would just let you retake one if you didn't do well. So go back and look at your grades on those. I think a couple of you guys might have forgot to do 1 or 2 of them way back early in the semester. So go back and check and make sure you've done all 3. And if you don't, use your retake if you need to. So rather than overloading you with more work there, that's what I decided to do. Just let you do a retake if you didn't do well. And so we got that. We also have the problem of papers that we have left. So remember that we have the final paper. The final paper, I decided to push the deadline back until the 9th of December. The 9th of December. So Friday, 10 days, about 10 days from now. So that's when the final paper is due. Remember, the final paper is about, you pick a passage from any of the plays we've read all semester. You kind of break down the passage in extreme detail. We talked about that way back in October. If you remember, I kind of went over the final way back in October. And I don't know, have any, I'm guessing none of you guys have started that yet. But have any of you guys started that yet? You maybe know your topics. What play or what plays you guys writing about?
I'm doing Macbeth. I'm almost done with mine.
Good. What about you, Faith? What are you doing?
I'm gonna do Medea.
Medea. So very, very good. There's also the issue of a third short paper. And what I'm late giving you that. I'm more late than I wanted to. I should have probably given you guys the prompt for that over Thanksgiving break. So what I'm going to propose is this. I put a prompt up for it, but I'm going to give you guys a choice. You can, I need to send you your second short papers back. I want to do that probably tomorrow. Okay. But once I send those back, I'm going to give you a choice. You can either accept your grade on those first 2, and just not do the third one. In that case, both of them will count 22% each. Okay. Or I will let you do the third one, meaning that all 3 of them will count 15% each. So I'm giving you the choice to skip it if you want to. Okay. So because I thought to myself, it's kind of cruel to make you do 2 papers in a week. Okay. So but a couple of you guys didn't do one of those first 2. So in that case, you need to do the third one. Okay. If you didn't do one of the first 2, you need to do the third one. But for the rest of you guys, if you are content with your grades for the first two, then I'll just make it a pick 2 or 3 option. Okay, so am I clear here? Am I making sense on? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So once you get your second short papers back from me tomorrow, you'll be able to make the determination on whether you want to do it or not. But like I said, if you don't, you can do all three. All three would then be worth 15% each. Or you can just do 2 and they'll be worth 22% each, 22.5% each. So it's your choice. Okay.
Will you want us to email you on our decision?
No, whenever the deadline comes, I'll know if you decided to do it or not.
All right.
Yeah, if you, so I'm going to go ahead and show you the my screen. So, oops, let's see. So the second short paper, or the third short paper, I have the Dropbox up for it here on Brightspace. And the prompt is up here. I'll go ahead and show you guys the questions. So if you do this third one, it'll be due a week from today. Okay. And again, if you didn't do one of the first two, do this one. But I geared these questions around drama from the modern period, which is what we've been mostly covering. So the questions I came up with today discussed the theme of race in August Wilson's Fences, particularly with regards to its protagonist, Troy. How does race act as a larger social force on Troy and his family? What is the story's perspective on how race affects the everyday Black American who is seeking his or her share of the American dream? Remember when we talked about fences a couple of weeks ago, we kind of really dug deep there, on, especially on Troy could seem to never get ahead, right? Troy, no matter how hard Troy worked, he was always a step behind everybody else. That Fences and Death of a Salesman are pretty similar plays in that regard. But one is Death of a Salesman's, or Fences rather, has definitely more of a theme of race. So if you pick that question, you guys will be doing an exercise in critical race theory. So that's a buzzword that isn't too popular these days. But again, that's what it is. The study of how race impacts Americans. Question 2 is something we'll discuss today. Discuss the theme of time and temporality in Arthur Miller's Death of a Salesman. You find its nonlinear structure effective at telling the story of Willie and his family. Why or why not? So this question will become readily apparent today as we discuss the story, because we're going to discuss the play and how it doesn't go in a beginning to end sequence. It's very non-linear and jumps back and forth in time. So yeah, the play is very postmodern in that way. So if you're interested in the theme of in that question, discuss especially the non-linear storytelling in Death of the Salesman. Discuss the theme of the American dream and its inaccessibility in modern life in Arthur Miller's Death of the Salesman. Is the dream still accessible in the modern world to someone like Willie, Biff, or Happy? Why or why not? So, yeah, the play at its heart is about the American dream. So, yeah. So the question here asks, do you feel like the play is saying the dream isn't accessible anymore? Right? No matter how hard we work, we're never going to get to that dream, that ideal. Number 4, discuss the theme of hypocrisy in Moliere's play Tartuffe. How does the play showcase religious corruption? Is Tartuffe's character a farce, or is there real life precedent in his character even today? Remember from Faith's presentation on Tartuffe, we discussed that pretty well. And I showed you guys the modern day pastors who perhaps will remind you a little bit of Tartuffe. Number 5 is a really abstract question. It says, compare and contrast one play in the modern period with a play from the ancient Greek and or Renaissance period. And looking at both plays, how do you see the evolution of the medium of drama based on factors like script writing, characters, stage direction, set design, etc.? So we've looked at one of the great things about this course. I mean, it's been definitely a survey course, but we've surveyed dramas all the way from the Greeks up to close to the present. So August Wilson's Fences, written in the 80s, is the closest thing we've read to the present. But how do you see the medium, how the medium has grown and changed and evolved from either the Greek or the Renaissance period to today? So that'll be a question we can discuss today a little bit too. But if you do this one, it'll be organized the same way as the others. Have an attention grabber, your thesis. Always assume your reader knows the plot of the play. Just get straight to your point, topic, sentence, evidence from the text, interpretation. So I know all of you guys are good writers from that first short paper back in October. So if you do this one, I trust you'll do a good job with it. So yeah, again, so you can decide for yourself if the average of the first 2 short papers is a good average for you, or if you want to work to bring it up, perhaps by doing a 3rd one. Or if you didn't do one of the first 2, do the 3rd one for sure. Okay. So that'll be due a week from the day if you choose to exercise this option. Okay, and the main paper, the final paper, next Friday, 10 days from now, will be when that is due. If you take a look, both the drop boxes are up for 3 and the final. As you guys see, a couple of you didn't do the 2nd one, in which case that's going to mean you need to do the 3rd one. Okay. So, any questions, comments, concerns, anything at all? Yeah, if you guys only do 2 of them, you're not really losing out on anything. Pretty much all of my other classes only do 2 short papers. So yeah, you're not really losing out on anything if you, by me only making you do 2 instead of 3. I'm sure you guys aren't going to complain about it.
Nope.
Yeah, like I said, I didn't want to be cruel and unusual and make you do 2 papers in a week, just because of my own blunder. So yeah, I'm taking it lightly on you. Okay, and that's pretty much it for the class business. A couple of you guys, I still need to evaluate your presentations. I think Faith and Ben are the only 2 people I still need to evaluate. Rest of you guys already have presentation grades. So I'll do that for the 2 of you who I still need to evaluate as well. I've been extremely crazy. Yesterday I finished grading for 5 of classes at Bluefield. So now I just have my couple here at Southern left to finish. So yeah, I've been a little nuts, but we're getting there. We're getting there. All right, so Lily, I will share my screen for you now, and you can just tell me when to change slides.
Okay.
Let me pull this up. Here it is. All right. Let me go to full screen. All right, Lily. So you may begin.
Okay. The Death of a Salesman is the play that we're talking about. The author of the play I've chosen to talk about is Arthur Miller. Arthur Miller lived from October 17th, 1915 to February the 10th of 2015. He was born in Harlem, New York, and continued to live in New York until his death. Arthur came from a wealthy family, but then lost everything during the stock market crash in 1929. This can be related to the theme of trying to reach the American dream yet always falling short, which is prevalent in his play Death of a Salesman. He had multiple jobs to help his family and to get through college, and he was also married to Marilyn Monroe.
Was she married to him when she had her relationship with JFK? Do you know, Lily?
I'm not sure. I think that he just stayed married to her for a couple of years.
Just a couple of years.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Arthur Miller is known for many great works, and The Crucible, All My Sons, A View from the Bridge, and Death of a Salesman are just a few.
Have any of you guys ever read or watched The Crucible before?
No.
You have faith?
Yes.
Yeah, that play is about Puritan New England, and it's about the Salem witch trials and all the hysteria that went around. It's a great play, but it's also a great film. Daniel Day-Lewis and Winona Ryder are in the film. But yeah, I just had to pontificate there. That's a good one. That's another good work of his. I don't know of You from a Bridge or All My Sons. I don't know those.
The play Death of a Salesman was performed on stage for the first time in 1949, and he had around 740 showings. Death of a Salesman has a timeless message because of the era it was written in. It was published after the Great Depression and both world wars. Despair, hopelessness, and disillusionment of the American dream and finding hope are but a few of the recurring themes within the play. Death of the Salesman, tragic comedic play, describes Willie Loman's descent into madness through flashbacks and memories. Willie's family includes his wife, Linda, his sons, Biff and Happy. And later on in the play, we find out that he has a later son named Ben. Willie's life is a constant search for the promise of the American dream. The American dream plays a role in how Willie Loman views and treats his family. Some important scenes of the play is Willie's flashback to his affair and his son Biff finding out. Biff's realization that he wants something different for his life other than the typical American dream. Some questions are, what was Willie's American dream? Could Willie's death been prevented? What do you think will happen to his wife and kids?
All right. We'll go back to your questions here in a second, Lily.
Okay.
So this is our very last play in the course. And yeah, I picked it as last for a reason, even though Fences was written after this. I think this is a good one to kind of go out on. This play is written, of course, as Lily said, right after in the 1940s, 1950s. This begins what we didn't really read any modernist plays, but in the 20th century, there was two really important literary movements. One was called modernism, and another one, and modernism came about as a result of World War I. So after World War I, they saw a lot of these writers saw how nihilistic the world had become. Right, for the first time, World War I. If you guys haven't had many history classes, World War I was an extremely devastating war. The carnage of World War I was insane. Just to give you guys a sense of the scale, in World War I, more people died in one battle than died in the entire American Civil War in the 1800s. There was a lot of carnage because this was a time period where they had developed a lot of weaponry, especially defensive weaponry like machine guns, but they didn't really have a lot of offensive weaponry to tear through it. And I saw your message, Josh. You're exactly right. The Spanish flu also was a big pandemic in the late 19 teens that also wiped out a large part of the population.
About 3% of the world.
Right. Yeah, the world hadn't seen a pandemic on that scale since the bubonic plague. So a lot of these, how does this all tie in with modernism? A lot of these writers rejected the old ways of doing things. Like they said, they thought to themselves, the old ways of doing things have led to this, this destruction and carnage and death on a wide scale. So a lot of writers started playing around with literary form, and not only within drama, but also within poetry, within the novel. Pretty much any type of literature in this time period started changing. I also taught a world literature course this semester that was mostly focused on modern world lit. I taught that at Bluefield, but my students were always kind of amazed at how complicated literature starts getting in the 1900s. You think to yourself, okay, close to the present day, it's going to be easier to read than stuff from like the 1500s. Not necessarily, because they start playing around with form so much. And within our book, The Norton Anthology of Drama, within our book, probably the most famous of the modernist playwrights is probably, let me see, Samuel Beckett. Samuel Beckett's Waiting for Godot. It's in our book. I didn't have you guys read it, but Samuel Beckett's Waiting for Godot is probably the most modernist play that we have in our collection. Bertolt Brecht's plays from Germany are also sort of very prominent in this genre. But modernists were very nihilistic. Usually their works were extremely dark and depressing. And again, they would play around with form. I mean, when I say form, I just mean the whole medium of drama. So like they would mix around the way that the stories are told, for instance. With our beginning to end structure, they play around with time and temporality in the plays. And a lot of things that were clear before are left a little more abstract now. But this play isn't necessarily, this play has a modernist built into it, but this is more of what we would call a postmodernist play. And after World War II, we're still living in an era of literature called postmodernism today. But postmodernism, it's really similar. It likes to play with literary form. This play definitely does that with its non-linear structure. The main difference is postmodernism tends to be a little more, well, it tends to be a little less depressing than modernists. As Lily said, there's a lot of comedy within this play, just as much as tragedy. You can kind of say it's a tragicomedy. But yeah, it tends to be a little more playful in it being abstract. If you guys know a lot about modern art, I don't know if any of you guys have ever taken art appreciation here at Southern, but especially if you look at works from somebody like Andy Warhol. I don't know if you guys know Andy Warhol's stuff. Like he did the famous picture of Marilyn Monroe, for instance, like the pop art. Andy Warhol is known as being like one of the great visual artists, and his pop art, his popular culture art, is seen as being this sort of more abstract art. It's a lot, if you look at Andy Warhol's art, it's a lot different than going back to look at a Da Vinci painting from the Renaissance. It's the same type of thing with drama in this case. It tends to be a little more abstract, a little more playful. So as far as classifying this one, I would classify this as more of a postmodern, but there's definitely a lot of just plain modernism in this too. I probably did you guys a bit of a disservice not assigning you Waiting for Godot. You would have hated me for making you read it, but you would have appreciated the difference more between Arthur Miller and Samuel Beckett. So that's just a little bit of literary context. Again, the closer we get to the present, a lot of times the more complex things get. I'm personally, you guys all know me as a teacher at this point. You guys know I'm personally more comfortable in the Renaissance period than I am in this period as far as things that I'm good at teaching. But yeah, like Miller, like Lily gave some good points about Miller. Again, I didn't know he was married to Marilyn Monroe. But a very prolific playwright. Like I said, between this and The Crucible, that's enough to put you on the map forever, just between those two, much less anything else he ever wrote. So with this play, we have a plethora of characters. Of course, we have Willie, we have his wife, and their two children, Biff and Happy. And we also have Willie's boss at work, Howard. We have Willie's side woman, right? She is a character within the play. She's constantly looming over Willie. We also have, of course, his wife's name is Linda. I should know that because my mother's name is Linda. We also have Bernard, as well as his brother, Uncle Ben, who made it big, unlike Willie. Like Ben went to Alaska and he went to the jungle when he made all this money. He made all this money mysteriously. So, themes of the play, again, the American dream, probably disillusionment, family dynamics, especially fathers who want the best for their children. So there's tons of stuff we could probably discuss here. So now's the time for me to stop, get what you guys have to say. So who wants to kick us off? What did you guys make of this play, Death of the Salesman? Shayla, it looks. I'll make you start. It looks like you. Looks like you're smiling mysteriously. It looks like you got something to say.
So sad. You know, like failed aspirations, loss of identity. The whole time, I'm just thinking, I really hope my life doesn't turn out like this.
Right. What would you say a lot of his failed aspirations are? That's a good place to kick us off.
Well, he had like this go lucky, like big personality, big dream personality. Like you can do whatever you want if you put your mind to it, and he passed that on to his kids, and then he failed. And then his kids kind of failed too. And like he worked for this company for however many years, so long, and then he was just tossed aside. How horrible is that? He was so like, what's the word? I don't know, I can't think right now. But like,
it was humiliating for sure.
yeah.
Yeah, all these you see a lot of this with the image of the house, right? They keep talking in the play about the mortgage that they have, right? Just when the mortgage is getting paid off, that's when the whole family falls apart, and that's when he kills himself at the end, right? So yeah, definitely a little definitely pretty dreary and depressing there. So Daryl, what did you make of it?
I definitely agree with what Shay said. It's very depressing, especially near the end of it. I don't think I disliked it or liked it. I'm pretty neutral on this play, especially compared to the other ones we've read. It's no Hamlet, but it isn't my least favorite either. And I really don't know why he would go off and do that. I understand that he had failed in a lot of things in life and made a lot of mistakes, but he wanted his kids to look up to him, and that's not really something they should look up to, is committing suicide. Especially the fact that they just now paid off the house. That part doesn't really add up either, but I guess that some people would say everything happens for a reason. Maybe it's best that I don't remember if it was Biff or Happy that left, and then one of them stayed to try to keep pursuing the dream, but maybe it was best that one of them left, and it was best for one of them to stay and pursue it. I don't know, but I guess at the very least, the wife gets to live mortgage free, and he did what he was meant to do.
Yeah, Biff left Happy because he ended up staying. Biff we can definitely break down Biff's character as we go. Biff's definitely not happy leading this lifestyle that his father lived. Biff seemed like he would be content if he just left him alone and let him go work on a farm somewhere. Um, Faith, what about you? What did you make of this play?
I agree with what was said by previously. It kind of felt familiar in a way, like the whole parent failing at life and then pushing success onto the kids. That's very much how my home life has been, except for the whole suicide part. But yeah, it's very depressing in a personal way. I liked it.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of my family too. My not me necessarily as much as my brother. Seems like my dad. My brother's kind of reminds me of Biff. He's a really smart kid. He's a person who just can't seem to find what he wants to do with his life. My dad like wants to push what he's done onto my brother, and I don't know if it always. That's a whole big family conflict in my family. So it reminds you said you kind of reminded you of stuff going on in your family, Faith. It definitely does from myself as well. The expectations that can be put on somebody by family, and are those expectations met? Biff's got tons of them. He's the star athlete. He's really handsome. The women fawn over him. He's somebody who should have all of the things that help make you successful. No matter what he does, he can't seem to quite get that. We can definitely make an argument whether we think this play's aged at all, right? Because arguably the dream is harder to get now than it was in the 1950s. We think about the 1950s as a time of great prosperity in our country, where things were really cheap. You could go to college for cheap. Wages were good. Right? The gap between rich and poor was the lowest it ever was. So yeah, we could make the case whether the ideas in the play have even gotten worse or not. Josh, what about yourself? What do you have anything to add to what others have said?
I really liked the play itself. I also agree with what everyone else has said. And this play was it reminded me a lot of my grandfather. You see, about a while back when I was in California, my family and I took care of him when in the last years of his life, and he had some it's very eerily similar attitudes. My grandfather was a songwriter, a pretty good songwriter that is, and eventually when his company went down, he was kind of like that. He seemed to try and cope with what was happening, and yeah, it just from watching the play really reminded me of that.
Did you find a good one to? I know you listened and watched. Did you find a good version to watch?
I found one from the 80s, and I watched that.
Yeah, I've never seen this. I've never seen a film version of this. Yeah, I would be interested in watching one.
It was like a television film, I think.
Yeah, this play is very influential. Like even like watching Jeopardy and stuff, I always oftentimes see lots of questions about it on shows like that. Ben, I don't know if your mic's working or not. I don't know if you have anything to add here. If your mic's not working, you can always fill us in the chat. Lily, you were our presenter. What did you think of this play?
I liked it. I thought it was depressing, and the way the end of it, I don't know, it's just surprising to me, I guess. But I guess with all the guilt, his family, would live pretty well off with $20,000 in a home. So I felt like he owed that at least to his wife after cheating on her.
Right? She never found out. She never found out about it. That's got to give it to Biff, even with his deteriorating relationship with his mother. He still never told her, right? So he let her keep on to this ideal that he was a good man in that way. Yeah, that was definitely a selfless act from Biff, right? He could have been like, "Hey, Dad's a piece of shit, right? He cheated on you, Mom. That's why. That's why, Mom. I didn't go to summer school after I failed math class because I was." He pretty much like worships the ground his father walks on, and then he sees his father become something ugly all at once. And Biff could have pointed the finger, but he let his mom hold on to that ideal of her husband.
I watched this play too, also in black and white. I'm not for sure who all was in it, but it was really good. You should watch it.
Did you watch one on YouTube?
Yeah.
So several versions. Josh said he watched one from the 80s. So maybe the one you watched, Lily, was closer to when the thing actually came out back in the 50s or 60s.
Actually, I read the play too, and it's kind of like you visualize it. I mean, it's just right on, really. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, this would be an interesting play to stage. Even if you just look at the description, Arthur Miller's description of the set design and stuff like that, then this wouldn't be an easy play to design a set for. Every like if you look at the very beginning, page 827, he gives very elaborate descriptions of the set. This isn't like Shakespeare where you can kind of do it with a pretty empty stage. Like there's a very elaborate set here. That question I give you guys, how has drama evolved? Well, there's one answer, right? Look at how complicated the set has to be in order to do this play. Like there's walls in the play that look like walls, but these are walls that characters can go through. That kind of shows you the passing of time and things like that. The way that Josh, did you notice the version you watched doing anything with that, like with the way the set was designed or anything like that?
It actually kind of looked like a Broadway set because there were actually camera angles where it was pretty obvious that it was a set. Like you could see the little gaps in. So it's kind of like they tried to do it in a style of like it was being done on Broadway when it wasn't.
Right? Yeah, Broadway, of course, Broadway sets tend to be pretty elaborate. Like that's definitely the height of theater. Yeah. I would be curious. I would be curious to stage this one. Like, what would this one be like to stage? If any of you guys saw our play we did at Southern last year, Cuckoo Nest, we had a pretty elaborate stage for that. I'm guessing this play would be even more massive of a stage to have to build.
Yep, the set designer has their work cut out for them.
Yeah. Did any of you guys see that play last year when we did it? No.
I did not. I was pretty new at the time.
Yeah, we did One Flew to the Cuckoo Nest at Southern last year. I was in the play. It was a good time. Good time. I think they're doing another one next year, but alas, I will not be in that one. But let's talk about the theme of the American dream in the play, since this is kind of one of the big themes. That was one of the questions on Lily's presentation. Lily asked, what was Willie's American dream? So, Lily, how would you answer your own question there? What was Willie's what would you describe as American dream being?
Well, I think that he just really wanted to have a purpose in life and some accomplishments.
What would you say he wanted his purpose to be?
Probably a good dad and a good role model and a good provider.
Right. Yeah, so we definitely see some gender expectations here, right? He wants to be, again, a model father. He keeps saying through the play he wants to be well liked, right? That seems to be Willie's key to success. You got to be charismatic. You got to be well liked. If you're a salesman, especially, people have to like you. Right? You have to be able to get on. You have to have a good ethos in that way, right? You have to have people trust you. Like he talks about how he likes to crack jokes with people, right? That kind of loosens them up. But he's obsessed with this idea of being liked, right? And that seems to be his downfall in a way. Right? He thinks the key to success is being liked. What did any of you guys have to say about that? And the whole idea of his obsession of being liked. Do you guys think being liked is a key to success? Is it a necessary ingredient?
No.
Why would you say so, Lil?
Because everybody's not going to like you. I mean, it's impossible to please everybody.
Right? Yeah. Willie, even with his work, Willie, his old boss liked him, right? But once the old boss retired and his son took over, a lot of the old charm no longer worked. So yeah, maybe this is a generational thing, right? Maybe Willie's particular generation really valued that as a part of your self-esteem, right? You need to be well liked. Biff was well liked, right? He was the star football player. Right? So, yeah, how popular are you? Right? That's something that he sees as a key to success. There's one character at one point in the play, I forget who actually tells him, "Hey, do you think J.P. Morgan was well liked? Like, do you feel like all these great industrialists, do you feel like they were well liked?" No, they made tons of money and were successful, but that doesn't mean they were well liked. They had to step on some people, right, to get that success that they managed to get. So yeah, I can't help but think about Elon Musk right now, right? Like Elon Musk has more money than anybody in the world, but he just bought Twitter, right? And he seems to be in a he reeks of desperation to me, right? He wants people to like him so much that he spent billions of dollars on Twitter just to for a person, just because he wants people to like him. That's what it seems. The story kind of reminds me of what he's doing right now. I don't know if you guys want to go there, but you know, I've been following it pretty intensely over the past couple of weeks. What do you guys think about this question of the dream? How do you feel like the dream is still accessible today? Can you still get the dream, or is it way harder than even it was when the story was written? We can go round table on this because this is a pretty broad question. Daryl, what do you think about that?
Can you run the question by me again? I'm sorry.
How accessible is the American dream, like especially today? Has the play aged in that way?
Idea about what the American dream is. Some people decide, well, it's to follow your dreams, whatever they may be, but others say a family with a white picket fence and a nice house somewhere. I feel like it depends on the places you live or the dreams you have, and a lot of people accomplish them. It just depends on how hard a person works and how many supporters they have around them. And to answer the question earlier, you said, do you need to be liked to be successful? I feel like the billionaires of this world are some of the most hated on people on the internet to a certain degree. So I definitely don't think money wise it's a necessary thing. But yeah, it just depends on which version of the American dream you're talking about out of those two. And I feel like you can reach your dreams, but depending on how high that dream may be, maybe it's a bit impossible. Like if your dream's getting everyone on earth to like you, I feel like maybe that's a bit too far. But yeah, like being a NASA employee and going to space, or being a big Twitch streamer, I feel like those things are accessible. It just takes a lot of luck, a lot of time, and a lot of dedication.
Right. So we can all still make it if we arguably work hard enough. So you definitely seem to be in favor of it's still accessible, but maybe even more work than it needed years ago. Yeah, that's a good point, Daryl. Especially thinking about these billionaires, right? Like, not all of them are well liked, so that's a good point. Shayla, what about you? What do you think? What do you think about the dream? Can we still get our piece of the pie if we work hard enough?
I think it really just depends on what your definition of the American dream is, like what your dreams and aspirations are specifically.
Well, let's define it like the traditional definition, like like Daryl just said, like you can go buy a house, have a family, be successful, retire at 60, like be comfortable economically.
Honestly, probably not. Everything is so expensive.
Right? Yeah, even buying a house, right? Like I'm 35 years old and I still haven't bought my first house yet. Um, the interest rates right now are 7% nationwide. So if you buy a house that a lot of the housing market right now is extremely crazy. Like all these places are extremely overpriced. So you gotta buy a place that's overpriced with 7% interest. So even the buying the house part of the American dream, that's looking a little hard right now. This is something you guys will be looking at yourselves in the next couple of years as you graduate college and maybe start looking to have families and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm 35 and I still haven't bought my first house yet. So take that for what you will. Of course, it took a long time to get my doctorate degree. So that's part of the reason why I'm so old and haven't done that yet. But Faith, what about yourself? You feel like the dream is accessible?
The common American dream, which is like get a nice education, nice job, nice house, nice car, nice family, be able to provide for your family. No, you can't. You cannot make it unless you've grown up in a rich household.
Right. Get build on that, Faith. Tell me why you think that way.
I think that way because, of course, your parents are going to provide for you if you need money. And also, an example of this, Elon Musk, his daddy was rich.
I said it was easy for him to succeed when he already had millions when he started out.
Yeah, like if you want to go to a top college and you're in the lower middle class region, you're going to have to sell a couple of kidneys. Like it's tough in this kind of economy, in this kind of like country we live in.
Yeah, I definitely don't disagree with you. I think I'm more on your side on this one, Faith, than I am on Daryl's in this case. Yeah, we seem to have a lot of things stacked against us these days. And again, if your family's not rich, well off, it's maybe a lot more inaccessible for you to get there. Like going to an Ivy League school, for instance, right? Like you have to, usually poor kids can't do that, right? They have to have family who pay for it. The schools don't give scholarships much. I have a friend who I went to Pineville with. He went to Harvard, but he became a history professor. He's a history professor out in California now. I think he works at UC Davis, I think. But yeah, he had to go hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt to go to Harvard to become a history professor. And needless to say, he doesn't make enough to pay his student loans. So I, on the other hand, went to WVU for free. I don't have many student loans, so I didn't go to Harvard. But two different approaches to academia, I suppose. Josh, what about yourself? How would you say the dream is accessible?
I would say that the dream is accessible, but I think it's a lot harder for some people than it is for others. Like you've mentioned, people who are poorer will generally have to work a lot harder to reach the more ambitious goals, shall I say. So while I do think the dream is accessible, it does require it may require a lot more work from others than it does from say someone who's more well off.
Right. Yeah, I think a common theme we can all agree with here is for your guys' generation, mine who, I'm a millennial, right? For all of us, things were a lot easier for the generations before us than they are now. I think we could probably all agree to that to some extent. As far as the cost of things, perhaps, like let's say you were living in West Virginia in the 1950s. A lot of those men worked hard, right? Especially in like the coal mines and stuff. We definitely don't take that away from them, but the cost of somebody, like if they wanted to go to college and stuff, was a lot less back then than it is today. You always hear these old folks be like, back in my day, I worked during the summer at the grocery store. I bagged groceries and I made enough money to pay for my college that year. Right? You've had somebody say that to you before, Shay, I'm guessing. Yeah. Yeah, I see that kind of stuff said all the time. Good luck doing that today. Right? Good luck doing that today.
Yeah, college has gotten so much more expensive. Can't drives me nuts.
Yeah, you guys are all smart coming to Southern and getting especially those general education classes out of the way for cheaper than if you did them in a bigger school. I work for a bigger school now. I can tell you guys that the courses you get here are just as good, if not better, than if you were paying double for them at a bigger school. Definitely, as far as the class sizes go, you guys get a lot more value for your buck, especially when it comes to getting to know your professors and stuff. Yeah, I think one of the things this story shows too is how lonely it is on your path to get the dream, right? Like Willie is so obsessed with the dream that he loses something with his own family, right? There's a disconnect between he and his wife. Otherwise, he probably wouldn't have cheated on her while he was on the road. There's a disconnect between he and his sons. Right? His sons tried desperately to please him, but they seem to never be able to do that. Biff is the obvious character here, right? He wants to go work as a farmhand out in Texas somewhere. Happy, on the other hand, I was really curious about this. Is the second time I've read through this play. It's the first time I've taught it, but Happy was definitely a curious character to me. His name, Happy, says one thing about him, right? Like,
Aptly named.
right? Yeah, Hap is his name, but they call him Happy. And the whole play, he especially is being desperate for his father's approval. I can't tell you how many times in this play, I should have counted. I can't tell you how many times I highlighted where he says, "Aren't you Dad, are you happy that I lost weight? Dad, are you happy that I lost weight?" Like, he asked that probably 10 times at various different scenes in the play. Of course, he ends up staying to near the family when Biff goes away again. So Happy seems to be the guy who carried on in his father's footsteps, perhaps unsuccessfully. Right? He's so desperate to be his father that he becomes his father, and the results aren't so good. Yeah, I found his character especially intriguing as I read through it this time. Biff kind of has that. There's a tension here in the story too between urban life and rural life. Biff seems that's part of this dream equation too. Urban, the urban American dream is probably like living out in the suburbs, right? Having your big house and all that, working your job in the city. That's not the job that Biff desires. Right? Biff wants to be out in the country. He wants to get his hands dirty, working out on a farm somewhere. Maybe he should have saved money to buy his own farm, maybe. But Biff, there's a rural and urban tension here too, right? Biff, I think he would thrive more in a more rural area instead of living in New York City. I don't know if you guys noticed that in the story, that especially the urban rural tension, that's probably a theme here too. Of course, we all live in a rural area. Josh, you've lived in urban areas, so you might be more sensitive to this theme than many of the rest of us.
Yes, I have.
What did you prefer, Josh? Did you like more urban, or you like being more out in the country in the more rural setting now?
I like where I am now. I'm in a more rural place, and my house is actually fairly isolated. It comes along a long driveway, so you kind of have to put a lot of effort to get to our house. Like, just as a little bit of example, no one came to our house to trick or treat because it's a long walk up here. So for me, I like being oh, I like being just here with my family.
Right? Yeah, the whole urban rural thing, lots of times with stories like this, even though the characters live in a more urban setting, it's even more isolating. Right? Like Biff in the story, he's happy when he lives out in the rural area. If he's in a more urban area, it's isolating. Right? Even though that's the whole thing, there's way more people around, but you're even more alone than you would be if you were out in the country somewhere. So that's part of the tension of a lot of these like modernist, postmodernist stories as well. Is this whole if you guys remember the 20th century, this is when big cities blew up, especially the 1890s going into the 1930s. All the big cities blew up as far as size goes. So with that, you see this lots of times in this literature, you see the cities aren't exactly everything that they're made out to be. You see that a lot with film too, like some of the two most popular film genres in the 1950s were the Western and film noir. Film noir was like the old detective style movies in the 50s. Most of the time they were in big cities. Westerns obviously weren't. So the two most popular film genres of the time even show that. That's a subject for film class if you guys want to take film class with me next semester. Yeah, if you guys need your art, well, this is an art class. If you guys want an elective, I'm doing that next semester. So join us. Daryl, are you coming back to that? One more round of me before you graduate?
You bet.
Good deal. Good deal. Daryl has had me for pretty much every English class. Have you taken another English professor besides me, Daryl?
I've had you every semester I've been there. This is my third semester now, and I had you for one class the first semester in person for half, and then online half. I had you two classes last semester, one for or no, did I have you two last time? I'm pretty sure it was just the Gothic.
Yeah, Gothic.
English 102. And then this time I have you for Western World Literature and Theater. So this is my fourth class with you, and I guess the next one will be the fifth and final.
And half of your associate degree with me. So.
I'm happy I've been able to. I'd say you're my favorite college professor so far.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Sometimes I wonder if it's all worth it. But classes like this make my job worth it. So, what else employee haven't we talked about? Biff, Willie, Linda in the plays are my only female character besides the call girls. Right, we get the call girls in the play, but Linda is our only female character. Well, I would say between this and Fences, the wife and Fences seem to have a lot more development than Linda does in this one. I probably already said everything I was going to say about her, right? She holds to this ideal about her husband. Like the ideal was never broken. And maybe Biff is right to never tell her. Maybe he isn't. And, he lets her hold on to this vision of her husband. But what would you guys say then? Should Biff have told his mother what he saw?
I know I would. I know.
Right.
If that were me in that situation, I would. I'm somebody who likes who wants to tell people the truth, even if it's something that's hurt, even if it's something that's painful, even if it causes major distress. I'm the type of person who just wants to say what's the truth. I don't like the idea of lying or even just concealing the truth just to spare someone's feelings. I don't agree with that philosophy.
The truth is always the best. Shay, you look kind of skeptical about telling the mother.
No, I would have. If it was my mom,
Yeah.
I would have been like, "That's a whore. He's cheating
Right.
on you." But with what Josh said, I'm a little bit of a pushover sometimes, and I'm really emotional. So sometimes I will lie, like tell white lies sometimes to protect people's feelings. But in the end, the truth always does come out. So
Little white lies don't hurt sometimes, right? Little ones, not big ones. Lily, what about you? Would you have told the mother?
Yes, in a heartbeat. But I think he done that just out of love for both of them, really. I believe he felt like if he told his mom the truth, she probably would have committed suicide too. He's
Right.
seen her hurt so much through the play.
Yeah, he chooses to abandon his own relationship with her, right? To in order to preserve this lie, which is very telling. Right? It's very sacrificial what he does. Just abandons his own relationship with his mother.
He takes all the hurt himself, I think, just to
keep her from being hurt. But it says a lot about his character.
This is definitely a morally gray question. Faith, what about you? Would you have kept the secret?
No, I wouldn't. I don't care what his motives were for cheating. He shouldn't be doing that. So, like, I'm gonna go tell my mom immediately.
Daryl, you're our last word here. What about you?
It really is tough for me. I do feel like the fact of Willie cheating was probably the main reason he committed suicide, because he felt the guilt from it, maybe. But it is hard to be in that situation because you want to have the truth put out, but you don't want to hurt your mother, and it's just really hard to be in that situation. I really don't know what I would do if I was in that situation, but I feel like the fact that he's gone makes me want to say it almost less, because then she's still going to have that good memory of him. But at the same time, maybe she would be able to cope with the loss more if she had known what he had done, because she'd be mad at him and wouldn't really miss him as much. It's really tough, but I'd probably, like, during the funeral, of course, I wouldn't have said it. Maybe a little later down the line, if she was really sad missing him and I felt like I could get it off my chest easier, that would probably be the optimal time. But in the heat of the moment when he was still alive and I was mad at him, I really don't know. I probably would have told her then.
Yeah, this Biff chooses to let this secret destroy him, right? His father's secret destroys him. That's probably the tragedy of the whole play. Like, rather than getting over it and moving on with his life, taking the summer school so he could go to UVA, right? He instead chooses to let his dad's nonsense bury him, which is probably, I would say that's probably the saddest thing in this play, right? Well, maybe suicide's obviously sad, right? But it's sad that the father's actions would destroy the son this way.
Yeah, that scene was rough. It was really gut wrenching.
Yeah, the way that Willie is trying to be like, no, she's just here just to take a shower, right? That was really cringy on his part.
I think it's common for children to take on their parents' emotional baggage.
Probably more common than we would like it to be, right? Yeah, like I was telling you guys near the beginning how my brother is probably taking on some of my family's emotional baggage. Faith mentioned her family as well. So yeah, good parents don't do that kind of thing, right? But it still nonetheless happens. Well, I feel like that's probably a good place to wrap it up for the night. I feel like we covered most of it. No, there's one more question I want to address before we go. What did you guys think about the non-linear structure of the play? Like, did you guys like how it jumped back and forth in time? It kind of kept you on your toes in that way, rather than going beginning to end, kind of go all over the place. What did you guys feel about how it was structured?
I'll go ahead and start with this. I think if you read it, just try and read it through the play itself, I think it will be a lot harder to follow. But when I was as I already said, I was watching it on a video. So for me, it was a lot more obvious that there were flashback scenes happening. There's a visual cue that pretty much tells you, hey, there's a flashback. So I like the use of flashbacks. I think it's a good way of showcasing both Willie's character and also telling us why he acts the way he does, and also showing that he's gone completely cuckoo.
What kind of visual cues did the film give, Josh?
You know, like the scene gets really lit up. Like most of the film is a pretty dark film, like in terms of lighting. But whenever there's a flashback scene, it's like boom, gigantic, lots of light, super bright. It's pretty obvious that it's a flashback.
Did the characters change clothes, or was it just the lighting and stuff?
No, I did notice some clothes changing, but they were all the same actors, so
Right.
it makes you. I actually liked that they were all the same actors because it kind of shows how crazy Willie has become. So yeah, I liked it.
There's a couple of scenes where we have little kid versions of Biff and Happy. So that mixes it up a little bit. Faith, what about you? What did you think of the non-linear structure? Was it easy for you to follow?
No, it wasn't. But then again, I just read it. I didn't watch it. And yeah, it is more difficult to follow whenever you're just reading it.
Right, like 1 minute he's in the present, 1 minute he's back 30 years before, and that 1 minute he's talking to his brother who's not there. Right, it can be a trip to follow. And so, again, that's part of the aesthetic of the play, is this, especially this more postmodern aesthetic. Shay, what about you?
For me to enjoy like flashbacks or like time jumps, it has to be done in a specific way that I don't find annoying. I did not like it in this play. I did not, no, it was hard to follow. Not good.
How would you describe it as you usually liking them?
Just being easier to follow, like, I don't know. I guess I need a very specific maybe line that's like, oh, we're here now. Oh, but this now we're back instead of just being random. And then me having to guess where we are. Because then I
Right.
just get confused and I'm like, I don't even know where I am. I don't want to read this anymore.
Yeah, it's harder to keep up with when it's non-visual, right? When you're just reading. Yeah, probably the greatest film of all time when it comes to giving flashbacks is Citizen Kane. That's probably the king of the flashback. Daryl, what about you?
I definitely agree with what everyone else has said, and I feel like flashbacks and looking into the future or back in time when it's not in the present story is a lot better in a video format, and it's a lot easier to understand. There were parts of this that were harder to understand, and because of that, I watched a few YouTube summaries on it to fully grasp it a bit better, and it did really help that way. I probably should have watched the film version of it, but I think the only film I've watched this whole class fully a movie type of play was
Hamlet.
I watched a little bit of Lysistrata, but yeah, I watched the Hamlet movie all the way through. I started to watch a little bit of a Lysistrata play, but it isn't really a movie; it's just a recording of a play.
Yeah, I went back and bought that David Tennant version of Hamlet that I recommended. I had to order it though. great version. I still need to watch the Macbeth that I told you guys about that's on Apple TV that Denzel Washington made earlier in the year. I know it was up for a bunch of Oscars and stuff. Lily, your last word. What did you think of the non-linear structure, especially as they're a presenter?
It was hard reading it, but when I started watching the film, it really helped to make a lot of more sense. And I liked it after I watched the film.
Was your experience kind of like Josh's, the visual cues and whatnot?
Yeah. Yeah, just like Teague. He explained that's exactly how it was.
And so, well, that just goes to show you the innovations of the genre, right? If they wouldn't have done anything like this in Renaissance drama. So this sort of experimentation with form. Again, if you guys want to read something way more abstract than this, read Waiting for Godot. It's in our book. You guys want something to read over the break, read that. It's a mind trip of a play to try to keep up with. A lot of the great works of literature in the 20th century are abstract. I don't know if you guys have heard of James Joyce, the famous novelist James Joyce, who wrote Ulysses and Finnegan's Wake. But his work, trying to make sense of his work, it's like trying to do a puzzle. Like you read the book and it doesn't make much sense. Trying to make sense of it's half the battle. So this is a William Faulkner's work, so they're very similar. He's probably the American James Joyce. The theater is no different.
Earlier, you said that you've never read All My Sons. You should definitely read it. It's good. It's a really good play.
You've read that one?
Yeah, it's really good. And I've watched it. Very good.
Yeah, I've read The Crucible and this. I haven't ever read that. So I need to put it on the list. I've got a couple of things I want to read during this holiday break. My favorite novelist, Cormac McCarthy, just came out with 2 brand new novels all at once. So that's probably what I'm going to be reading over the break. I'm going to read it, so hopefully I can come up with a good paper idea on it to present, since it's a brand new book and nobody's come up with any interpretations yet. See, when it comes to literary scholarship, that's what you got to do. You got to find something that not many people have written about to do work on. That's the key. If you try to become a Shakespeare scholar and write about Hamlet, that's a little harder of a task than writing about somebody nobody else has written about before. Well, guys, I figure that's probably enough for tonight. So again, guys, this class was a pleasure. Tuesday nights were always a lot of fun. So I hope you guys enjoyed the course as much as I did. So reason why I did this class on Zoom instead of online, like you guys can't get this type of experience doing a class online. Like all these discussions we've had, breaking this stuff down. I hope all of you guys would agree that this type of format just works better for this type of stuff. So yeah, we had a good time. Everybody contributed. So I appreciate you all. You guys all made this a great class. I'm just the person who pushes it along. You guys made it a good class. So thank you. It was a wonderful semester. And again, as far as stuff I still need to grade, I'll try to get that to you tomorrow, so you'll know whether you want to make a decision on whether you want to do the 3rd short paper or not. Okay, so please, guys, do go in and give me one of those teacher reviews. Usually when it comes to teacher reviews, since they're optional, usually the only people who go in and do them are people who have a bone to pick. So if you have a nice thing to say, please give me a good teacher review. Always, those types of things actually do help us. So they give us evidence of good teaching and stuff whenever we need to prove that we're effective teachers. So yeah, please go and give me a review. All your other teachers as well. Give all your other teachers reviews. We all appreciate it. So, well, next Friday, the 9th of December is when to get the paper in. So the final paper. So don't forget about that. I'll send you guys reminders over the next week to make sure you guys stay on top of things. Well, thank you guys. Again, it was a pleasure. So if you guys ever need anything from me in the future, you can always reach out and contact me if you need a reference or something like that. So that's it. You guys have a great Christmas break.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lily.
Thank you for the class, Professor, and have a Merry Christmas.
You too. Thanks, Josh. See you, Shay. See you next semester, Daryl. See you, Faith.
I'll see you then.
All righty.